Hey St. Joseph's, Father John here. Monday, happy Easter, and we are week 8 of our social distancing experiment. And it's time for the gospel. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. A good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. A hired man who is not a shepherd and whose sheep are not his own sees a wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf catches and scatters them. This is because he works for pay and has no concern for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know mine and mine know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I will lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. These also I must lead, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock, one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I laid down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have power to lay it down and power to take it up again. This command I have received from my Father. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. All right, St. Joseph's, love you, praying for you, always offering masses for you. And keep praying for our bishop, for all the priests. That as we begin to reopen up parishes and reopen up masses with congregations, that we can do it in a safe way that doesn't kind of get in the way of all the gains that we've made and the great sacrifice that we have done as a community, as a nation in quarantine for the past basically 8 weeks. Now, this passage obviously is a continuation from yesterday's gospel, from Sunday's gospel, but to keep in mind the context of where we find this particular passage, that from John chapter 9, verse 39, all the way to John 10:21, that is like one literary unit. You have to read that as one unit. Basically, that he's preaching right after he heals the man born blind, he restores his sight. He's now preaching to the Pharisees who are now blinded because of their arrogance and pride. So from John chapter 9, verse 39 to John chapter 10:21, that is one literary unit, even though it's different chapters. Remember, chapters and verses came way later, centuries and centuries later. The gospel writer John did not put chapter verses and chapters and verses there. They're kind of arbitrary just so we can find things. Now, there's just 3 things I want to focus on for a second. Is that the polemic that Jesus says between the good shepherd and the hired hands, the intimacy of the love between Jesus and the Father, the Son and the Father, and the authority that Jesus has. First is that actually Jesus engages in polemics. That this whole soliloquy, this monologue is addressed to the Pharisees, and that he's calling them out as hired hands, but he's also talking to future priests, to future pastors, to future shepherds, bishops, priests, popes, to make sure that we are there to lay down our lives for our sheep, that there's nothing, that we don't become priests, we don't become pastors, we don't become preachers, we don't try to help guide people to God for some benefit. And so we always have to check our motives, not just priests, but anyone who wants to help lead someone closer to Christ, to check our motives. Are we doing it because we need something? Or do we want to give ourselves? Which then leads us to the second point of the intimacy between the Son and the Father. The Son comes down, as he says, to lay down his life for his sheep, to completely, he's sold out for God's people, to save his people. So Jesus, the second person of Trinity, is not doing this because he needs something from the Father. Like, for all eternity, he's just looking at God the Father and saying, but you've abandoned me as a son. I need something more. No, he comes on earth in fulfillment of the Father's will, overly joyed to share everything that he is, to empty his divinity, to empty himself out for us. And so he does that out of an abundance of the love that the Father pours out into him. And we now as Christians have that intimacy, that exchange, that interpenetration, or that famous Greek word perichoresis, that I am the good shepherd. I know mine and I know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father. That the intimacy, the infinite intimacy that the Father has with the Son for all eternity, now we are invited into that, to share that intimacy because of the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And third is the authority. What authority does Jesus have? The only authority that Jesus has is given from his Father. But he has the authority to say no. God always approaches us appealing to our freedom. Always remember that. He always appeals to our freedom. As St. Augustine says, he creates us without ourselves, but he does not save us without our consent. He creates us without our consent. He does not save us without our consent. That he only offers us salvation, and he gives that to, and then if we say yes to it, that's when we take hold of it. And so the authority that he has comes from the Father, but it's also that infinite freedom that the Father has given him, that he can say no, but he doesn't, and he embraces the cross. So my brothers and sisters, we are called, just like Jesus, to take the great gift and the responsibility of our freedom to choose the good. That our freedom is not so that we can have many choices, but our freedom is to choose the good, and the greatest good is God and Jesus Christ, and we must follow that good as always. St. Joseph's love you, praying for you. God bless you, and have a wonderful Monday.